You're not going to be a dictator, are you? No, other than day one.
Donald Trump has successfully moved the Overton window in a way that is as dangerous for the future of democracy in this country as anything else.
This is what Vout and Project 2025 wanted.
Newsom is he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
They control the Congress, they control the White House, and they control the courts. And so, of course, they're massively overreaching. And yes, they are getting away with it right now.
This is clearly a man who cannot tolerate criticism of him or what he does, which is exactly what authoritarianism is all about.
The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. They really are the enemy of the people.
What he is saying, rather bluntly, if you stand up to Donald Trump, he will punish you.
Protesters in Philadelphia, state capitals in California, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana, and others showed up to oppose Trump, Musk, and Project 2025.
The US and President Trump has overseen America's largest military parade in decades as nationwide protests take place against his leadership.
Demonstrations are happening right across the United States today to oppose the Trump administration.
Two visions of America. On a day the country's deepening divide was there for all the world to see.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, and you are watching Logically Left right here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. And it's Friday. All right, we made it through yet another week of man-made horrors. So congratulations to everybody who actually did make it through the week. Look, unfortunately, we're going to start the weekend off with a lot of FAFO, okay? We got a lot of stuff here, a lot of, Trump supporters that are finding out. So, and many other people, by the way. We've got a Trump voting county that is losing their maternity stuff, okay? Part of their hospital. It's the labor and delivery unit. So that's gone. I know. Really strange stuff. Disaster as a result of course, the big, beautiful bullshit bill. We have a former employee of President Trump, okay, who mistakenly got deported. So I've got the details on that one. So, hey, if you work for Trump, by the way, that means Trump was hiring undocumented immigrants. We already knew that, but it's just more evidence here. So we've got that. We have a farmer in Florida who is who might be setting himself up for some regret because things are not going well for him, as well as Iowa, which is now facing the worst economic collapse in the country, thanks to Trump. And then we have Gen Z. The numbers for Trump, okay, people who are Gen Z that supported the president in this election, turns out they're not impressed. All right. So yes, there's a lot of winning going on here. So much winning. I think we're tired of it now. It feels like we're tired of winning. I've got the details on all that stuff. Now, before I dive into the stories here, please like and share. Very important that you do so. With that said, let's do it. Oh boy. Awesome. Yet another medical center has been forced to close down thanks to the Medicaid cuts in Trump's big, beautiful bill. This week, St. Mary's Sacred Heart Hospital in Livonia, Georgia, in Franklin County, which, 86% of which voted for Donald Trump. Okay, so they're massively pro-Trump people. In this county, this hospital just announced the closure of its labor and delivery unit. That means that patients in the area, who are pregnant or giving birth, okay, they're going to be either forced to drive or be driven, let's be honest, about up to an hour and a half away if they would like to actually give birth in a hospital, which is encouraged. I think it's probably better, and I know I'm probably going to get some mommy influencers and bloggers or whatever that are like, no, home birth, much better, natural. Okay, just hold on to yourself, okay? All right. I just think that it's generally better because then you have access to, I don't know, doctors and emergency equipment and things, just in case something goes wrong. Just saying. Now, this closure would make the 26th labor and delivery unit closure in the United States just this year alone. All right? That's a lot. That's a lot. And for a country that claims to want to up the birth rate, you hear right-wingers talking about this all the time, like the birth rate, it's too low. Elon Musk, all right, birth rate. We need to boost up the birth rate. People need to have more babies. We're not having enough babies, guys. They got to have more babies. Got to have more babies. Well, where are they going to have them at? You have all these closures. I mean, for a country that claims to want more children, we sure have a weird way of showing it, don't we? Now, in a statement to CBS Atlanta, the hospital stated that, look, while they had some issues with things from the start, all right, for example, let's see, physician shortage, okay? That's one of the things that are happening. Funding shortages, obviously, from the Medicaid cuts. They have all sorts of things. One of the big drivers, though, of this closure is Medicaid, okay? The Republican cuts to Medicaid were the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, all right? That's the reality. In fact, here's the statement to CBS Atlanta. This decision follows an extensive 18-month discernment process that included intensive efforts to recruit additional physicians, create new partnerships, and pursue incremental funding sources. Changing demographics in our region, physician recruitment challenges, increasing outmigration for labor and delivery services, and recent congressional cuts to Medicaid solidified this decision. Oops. Look, the reality here, okay, is that hospitals in rural areas, all right, rely heavily on programs like Medicaid and Medicare to stay open. When you cut those programs, or when you make it so that less people can qualify for those programs, you effectively cut off that funding stream to hospitals, all right? And look, one of the major reasons that a lot of these hospitals already were facing problems before, okay, is that they just don't have as many patients because there's not as many people that live there. Now, this is a great example of capitalism at work, okay? If hospitals were funded by state and federal governments, instead of having to rely on individual patients, right, then people in these areas would have guaranteed access to hospitals. They wouldn't need to close down because they'd always have enough funding to operate. Not only that, but hospitals would be forced to focus on your care instead of having to sit, for example, on the phone and fight with your insurance company, okay? Remember, these companies are the ones who get between you and your doctor. That's it. It ain't the government, okay? I know Republicans love to make that argument. The government's getting between you and your doctor. We're going to fight against that. And we're going to make it so the insurance companies get between you and your doctor. Well, what's the difference? There really isn't any. And besides, again, it's not the government getting in between you and your hospital or your doctor. These are, not the government's not doing death panels. No, the real death panels are insurance companies. And here's the thing, right? The government is not sitting there wasting a whole bunch of money on surgeries and things that you don't need. No, that would be United Healthcare. Okay, that would be these insurance companies that love to do that. They got caught upcoding patients so that they would get care that they didn't actually need. So no, it's not the government that is doing the waste here, okay? And it's because the government is not running on a profit margin like these companies are, okay? Look, if you break your leg and your doctor says, oh, well, I think you need an x-ray for that. Okay, and if it's bad enough, then maybe they might say, well, okay, it looks like you might need a surgery, right? So if your doctor says that and you're in a government plan, the government's not going to be like, right, but are you sure? They're going to be like, all right, well, you know, we're going to take the doctor's word for it. All right, and we're going to pay for the surgery. Okay? Now, insurance, however, is different. Insurance is like, now, you know, we actually think that you don't need an x-ray or surgery. No, just get some ice pack and get an ice pack and some Tylenol, and you'll be fine. Unless you're pregnant. Because, you know, RFK Jr. thinks that causes autism. The brainworm, everybody. Well, you know what? You should probably get some more tests run. That's right. Maybe a second opinion from a specialist who is not in your network. But we're not going to tell you. Okay? We're not going to tell you that he's not in network. Oh, okay. So that you'll get, you know, surprised with a nice bill. Obviously, that's not the only problem with our healthcare system. Okay? But it is a big problem. The profit motive. All right. There's other problems, of course. We have both an OBGYN and a physician shortage in this country. Okay. Over 40% of U.S. counties are in areas where people have to drive an hour or more to get to a trauma center. Okay. And 80% of counties are actually located in what are referred to as healthcare deserts. Those are problems. And about a third of all Americans actually live in one of those healthcare deserts. You know what that equates to? About 114 to 116 million people. That's not an insignificant number. That is a very significant number, okay? And look, there are people, these people are now suffering as a result of the Medicaid cuts. What, did you think that it would only affect the people on Medicaid? These massive cuts? No, no. And it certainly doesn't affect illegal immigrants because they don't get Medicaid, all right? The only kind of care that they get from the hospitals is emergency care because of Ronald Reagan and EMTALA. And if you're against that, then why don't you make an argument as to why you think that people should be allowed to bleed out in a parking lot because of their immigration status? And try to do so without sounding like a psychopath. I don't think you could do it. Okay? I don't think you could do it at all. So, no, look, the reality is, again, hospitals and delivery centers, they rely on this money. And now that money's gone. All right? It's gone. It's gone. Okay?
Bing, 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 boom, it's gone.
$1 trillion in Medicaid funding. Poof. Also that rich people living in the big cities, by the way, who have access to hospitals, can get more tax cuts. Congratulations, rural MAGAs. You done played yourself. Now look, to fix these problems, which are very real problems, and by the way, you know, we had a lot of problems before Trump as well with our healthcare system. Fixing them would involve a little bit of what you would call socialism, right? For one, the doctor shortage, that's easy to fix. Make medical school free. I know, heads explode right now. Oh my God, you can't do that. Why not? Why not? I mean, more people would be encouraged to go and get a medical degree, especially if it didn't cost 6 figures in order to get, all right? You know, you could also put funding into medical internships, right? You could also get rid of pharmaceutical ads. You can get rid of all that stuff and transition, very important, transition to a single-payer healthcare system where you get rid of these insurance companies. And you know what? It would end administrative billing, exorbitant healthcare executive salaries, save us money on pharmaceuticals that for some reason we don't negotiate prices for like every single other developed nation on this planet. The money that is right now going into the pockets of the executives so that they could buy another yacht, all right, could actually be used to fund and staff hospitals, emergency centers, as well as labor and delivery units. We could do that, but we choose not to. Okay, we choose not to. Well, where are you going to get the money? Tax rich. And actually, honestly, when it comes to a single-payer healthcare system, it actually costs us less because you're getting rid of all of that administrative corporate bloat. Now, as for some of the physician shortages, right? Even doing all that wouldn't completely fix that problem because there's a lot of physicians that might not want to move out into the country. Fair enough. Fair enough. But you know what? They really don't want to move out there right now because, well, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to move out into the middle of nowhere? Why wouldn't they want to move out to places like rural Georgia where you don't know if the hospital is going to shut down in the next 3 months or not? Yeah, I think I answered that question already. Not only that, but these places, a lot of these places that are seeing these closures also are in Republican states that have passed laws that are, look, they're anti-abortion laws essentially, but these are laws that hamstring the doctor's ability to actually do their job. All right? So they would have to choose between saving lives or following these vague laws. Okay? Abortion bans. And look, at least 2 women, by the way, in Georgia alone have needlessly died as a result of those abortion bans. Because you have doctors that are like, I can't treat you. It involves, in order to save your life, I have to give you a D&C, which is an abortion, right? Even though you're not going to survive, your baby's not going to survive. If we don't do it, I can't though. I'm not allowed. I will be charged with murder if I do it. So my hands are tied. I can't do anything. You're just going to have to bleed out. Look, this is the same state where a woman's body was used as an incubator. She was brain dead. And they just used her body to incubate a baby. That I don't believe that baby is survived. Look, a survey of OBGYNs in the state actually found that many of them have personally witnessed incidents in which miscarrying patients had been harmed by these states' anti-abortion laws. And it's not just Georgia, it's Iowa, which currently now has the lowest number of OBGYNs per capita in the nation, as well as Texas. Many other places. Look, everything that is happening right now is a result of Republican policies. Period. And that's not to say that the Democrats don't share the blame for killing single-payer healthcare and free college. Oh, no, they absolutely do. I mean, come on. We know that. We know that. If you're paying attention, you would know that the Democratic Party has been generally standing up for the status quo, which is, again, for-profit healthcare and not funding free colleges. Okay? If they were to actually back Medicare for all, a single-payer healthcare system, and actual free college for everyone, those would be winning issues and would help so many people and actually would help solve some of these problems. But they're not doing it because of the donors. But that's a different conversation. That said, everything else, the abortion bans, the steep Medicaid cuts to SNAP, the fact that insurance prices are about to explode, people are going to get sticker shock real soon, and the fallout from all of that, well, that's pretty much all on the Republicans. Okay. moving on here. A loyal former employee to President Donald Trump has accidentally been deported. What do I mean by that? Hold on, this is an interesting story, okay? So now you've got Alejandro Juarez, 39-year-old man, who had worked for more than a decade at the Trump Organization's golf club in New York, Westchester, I believe. Now, he was actually sent back to Mexico as a result of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Now, Juarez claims that this was illegal because he was not given due process, and before he could even see a judge to argue his case, he was shoved into a plane bound for Texas and then forced to cross a bridge over the Rio Grande into Mexico. Oops. He told the New York Times, quote, "And that's how my journey in the United States ended, with me crossing a bridge." All right. Now, the kicker, of course, is that this was apparently done, as I had mentioned, in error. Oh, did ICE make a mistake? Oh, unheard of. No, absolutely heard of. Not the first time, and it won't be the last. Now, officials at Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency had realized after the fact, after they had sent him to Mexico, that they put Juarez on the wrong plane instead of sending him to a detention center in Arizona. Oh, did you mess up?
Whoopsie.
Oh, no. Now, ICE officials claim to have attempted to determine Juarez's whereabouts, which included by sending emails and trying to contact detention facilities in an effort to locate him. They could not, of course, because he was in Mexico. Whoops. I mean, I guess probably better than being stuck into one of those detention facilities, but still, oops. Now, DHS told the outlet that incorrectly that Juarez had not been deported, adding that he was detained because of a 2022 conviction for DUI with a child in the car. Now, I don't forgive that. I mean, that's not a good thing to do. You shouldn't do that. You've got to be careful, right? But still, I don't think that actually makes him the worst of the worst. I thought that that's what they were supposed to be going after. You know, the worst of the worst, the criminals and the rapists and the murderers. And the guy who got caught having a beer in the car. I don't even know if he had a beer in the car. Might have had a beer before getting in the car, right? And so again, I don't condone doing that. I think that's a bad idea. But seriously, that's your worst of the worst? Come on. Now, the agency, of course, later on acknowledged that they made a mistake, saying Juarez had been removed to Mexico early because he was put on the incorrect transport. Early, meaning, of course, that they always had a plan to get rid of him, obviously. Now, Juarez was detained on September 15th after being called to an appointment with ICE officers in Lower Manhattan. This would have been just your routine check-in, but instead, of course, turned into an illegal deportation. Juarez should have had a scheduled hearing before a judge to plead his case, which is part of due process. But by the time of his hearing on September 25th, Juarez was long gone. Just gone. Now, Juarez's attorney, Annabelle Romero, said, quote, "This is unprecedented what happened to him. In my 20 years of practice, an individual being removed without any hearing, leaving even the court and DHS confused." Well, I mean, this is par for the course now, right? This is what's going on. This is what's happening all the time. Now, of course, this leaves his wife and 4 children without a father. So now he had said this, quote, "My 10 and 12-year-old children, they asked me on the phone, 'When are you returning, Poppy? We miss you. We can't be without you.'" Well, I mean, the fact is, he's never going to return. And if Trump has his way, he's going to send that entire family to Mexico, even though they're not from Mexico. The kids were born here. But here's Donald Trump, though, ripping families apart once again. Hey, where are the fathers? Oh, right, you deported them. That's what you did. Look, I know that this man was undocumented, and I don't really care. I don't really care, okay? Look, the man came to this country when he was a child, learned English, okay, got married, got a job, paid his taxes, had a family, and yes, of course, he made mistakes. But you know what? Humans make mistakes. That's what happens. The man even worked for Donald Trump, okay? He worked for Donald Trump. That was until, of course, he got fired in 2019 during Trump's first term. Why? Because he was undocumented. And Trump loved hiring undocumented workers because they were cheaper, right? Ooh, but then he's like, in 2019, he's like, oh, man, that doesn't look so good. If I, that I have all these undocumented workers, I'm going to have to get rid of them. Oops. The man had worked for Trump for over a decade with absolutely no problems. In fact, I think his problems started after he got fired. I mean, the man, again, was put on probation for driving while intoxicated. So he had a DUI and sentenced to 3 years probation. Now, as a result of that probation, of course, that arrest, he had to do those regular check-ins, which normally were not a problem until now. Until Stephen Miller demanded 3,000 deportations a day, which is an insane amount. I keep saying that there are not enough criminal illegal aliens in this country to justify that number of arrests and deportations. There just isn't. There's not that many people. Fortunately, they don't care. They don't care. And instead of going after the worst of the worst, because there's not that many people that are the worst of the worst that are even in the country, all right, they're going after these people. People who might have had a DUI or some other misdemeanor, right? Or people just going to work who might be undocumented or might have let their, visas lapse. Look, what ICE is doing is struggling to meet the demands of an insanely racist neo-Nazi. That's who Stephen Miller is. Do you think that Stephen Miller cares at all about the due process of these immigrants? Not at all. What he does care about is just hurting brown people. Okay. A Republican Trump supporter in Florida is now facing the consequences of his vote. See, Paul Mador is a farmer in Lee County. And like other farmers now, is having some problems with labor, having some problems finding enough people to pick his fruit. He said, quote, I employ about 1,000 people at this time of year. But because of the government shutdown, Mador says his operation has been feeling the pressure. Like, now, why? What's going on here? Why can't he find labor? Well, his farm depends on foreign labor. Not undocumented labor, but labor that is sourced from the H-2A visa program, which allows farms to bring in temporary foreign laborers to help pick their seasonal crops. Okay, so obviously that is a program that gets used quite a bit because Americans don't generally do those jobs. I mean, again, they are seasonal. They don't stay around. They're very difficult to do. The hours are not great. The labor is really, really hard. And so, yeah, a lot of Americans don't sign up for that. But you do get young people from other countries coming in and doing that labor, which helps our food supply. It's very important that we have this labor. Now, that said, this guy can't bring in any people the legal way, okay? And that's how he's trying to do it. The H-2A visas are the legal way of doing that, okay? But since the government's been frozen, he can't bring anybody in. Well, why not hire Americans? I think I already answered that question, okay? Americans don't want to do those jobs. Simple as that, all right? And by the way, you know, look, they don't really pay very much in addition to being difficult and physically demanding and temporary, okay? And so, again, that's why young foreign laborers do get called in, but without the ability to call those people in, people like Meter are stuck. He said, quote, "We have no plan B. We don't have anybody else to fall back on to help with the harvest." Now, why? Why is this happening? Why is the government shut down? Well, it's because of Republicans. Republicans cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid in order to give tax cuts to themselves and their billionaire donors, and have refused to stop the entire health insurance marketplace from collapsing in on itself by not extending the ACA tax credits. They refuse to extend those tax credits. Now, that, of course, is forcing the Democrats, who get money from those same health insurance companies that will be impacted by this, to have to do something. That's actually why you're seeing Democrats fight, okay? The donors tell them, whoa, we need those tax credits. We need those subsidies, okay? And so you're going to fight for this one, all right? You're going to fight. We demand it. And the Democrats say, yes, sir, because those same corporations, once again, fund the Democratic Party, okay? So now, these companies know that if the subsidies stop flowing, then no one's going to be able to afford their overpriced health insurance. That leaves millions without access to health care. Not only that, but you have hospitals that depend on the Medicaid funding that are closing down, okay, in rural areas, leaving tens of thousands of people without health care. So it's a disaster. Now, Republicans didn't care about any of that stuff. They barreled us towards a government shutdown, and now their own voters are out there paying the price. In fact, on Tuesday, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart sat down with Wink News anchor Claire Galt and a group of Florida fruit and vegetable growers for a roundtable discussion. Now, farmers at the meeting warned that the longer the H-2A program remains paused, the greater the potential for devastating consequences. Quote, "The crops will be lost. It will be overwhelming." And you know what else is going to be overwhelming? The cost of food, which is already way up. It's already way up. According to records, Florida growers recently sent a letter to the Office of Management and Budget demanding action, from Russell Vought, who's not going to do anything about it. Now, this letter said, if the U.S. Department of Labor does not quickly resume certifying H-2A applications, 40% of Florida's annual H-2A workforce may not arrive in time for harvest. The letter also warned that producers could face up to $30,000 per acre for some commodities in potential losses. Jamie Fussell, Director of Labor Relations for the Florida Fruit and Vegetable Association, said the situation has reached a breaking point. The Department of Labor is particularly the part right now that is held up. If the certifications can't move, the rest of the process can't work. Let me just say this. This is what happens when you give Republicans control of the government, okay? Every single Republican administration in my entire 42 years of living, all right, has managed to fuck up the economy in some way. Obviously, the big one, we all remember George W. Bush. George W. Bush's massive tax cuts for the rich completely blew up the projected budget surplus left over from Bill Clinton. The deregulation, of course, in that administration also led to the 2008 financial collapse. Barack Obama gets into the office and starts working on it, starts fixing some of it, and then here comes Donald Trump with more tax cuts. And oh look, we get a pandemic, which caused massive inflation. an economic destruction, devastation, more like it. Joe Biden gets in office, tries to turn some of that around, and actually starts to have a little bit of success in taming inflation. But then here comes Donald Trump again with even more tax cuts for the rich, deregulation on AI and crypto, his tariffs, mass deportations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And would you look at that? Oh, prices are up. Inflation increasing again. Farmers, ranchers struggling. Hell, everyone is struggling except for rich people. That's right. Every time Republicans get into office, they fuck it up for everyone except for rich people. The wealthy got wealthier after 2008. Hell, in the last 5 years, the richest 0.1% doubled their wealth. And they do that by buying up foreclosed homes. Small businesses that failed. All right? They rent them out to people then after they buy everything up. Blackstone, okay? Blackstone, whatever. BlackRock. All these companies buying up all the stuff and consolidating it. We're going to be becoming a renter economy. I think we already pretty much are. And you know what the next target is? Farms. Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance's Acre Trader. They stand to make a killing as farmers go bankrupt. What's going on here right now is simply a way for the rich to concentrate wealth back into their hands. Elon Musk right now is gunning to be the world's first trillionaire. Peter Thiel is even more massively wealthy than he was before, okay? Elon Musk might be able to make it to be a trillionaire, okay? And this is while people are going hungry, losing their homes, losing their farms, losing their businesses. Look, Trump and his rich friends are going to be the death of the middle class, and that is, of course, by design. If you voted for Donald Trump thinking that he was going to look out for you and these Republicans, I got news for you. You got scammed. Bamboozled, even. And it's not like we didn't see this one coming. We warned you. We warned you, and you didn't listen. And now, y'all are stuck having the day that you voted for. Keep trashing the Dems, idiot. You keep getting waxed for it. That's funny because you're blind. You're fucking blind. Both sides are against us because they both serve the same people, the richest people, the donor class. See, it's idiots, it's partisans like you that allow for fascism to happen. Because guess what? These corporations who fund both sides love fascism because they make money from both sides. You have to open your fucking eyes. Open your fucking goddamn eyes and look around for a minute, dumb fuck. You're an idiot. You are the one, you're the people that are vote blue no matter who, when that person who is the Democrat has got a D next to their fucking name, sits and votes for the corporations every single time that screw over average people like you and me. Open your goddamn eyes. Stop being so goddamn blinded. I prefer Democrats over Republicans, obviously, because they are not actively out there fucking harming us. But open your eyes. No blue, no matter who, okay? None of that bullshit here. No blueing on. Because that's bullshit. It ends up hurting us more than anything else. All right. Anyway, let's move on. At least the previous Republican presidents, except for Trump with the tariffs. Yeah, well, again, a lot of Republicans did not do the tariffs before because they weren't that dumb. Trump is. Okay. Yeah, it's really screwing us over. Texas doesn't have much choice of candidates. Yeah, and there is that issue, right? Primaries, I would say primaries are very important. Primaries, I would encourage people to get in primaries, but sometimes, again, if you don't get your way in the primary, that sucks. All right. And then look, in the last few presidential elections, obviously we didn't get our way in the primaries. And so, yeah, I voted for Hillary Clinton, right, in 2016. Didn't like it, but I still did it. Right? I voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Didn't like it, still did it. Voted for Kamala Harris, 2024. Didn't like it, still did it. Because I knew that the alternative was going to end up being worse. But in the primaries, I voted accordingly. I voted who I wanted to see win those elections. And yeah, I didn't get my way. And that sucks, but I mean, sometimes in politics, you don't win on those issues. And I wish I had, because we wouldn't have been dealing with Donald Trump, I think, for as long as we've been dealing with him. So, yeah, it is the unfortunate reality of our political system. Okay. Anyway. President Donald Trump's support among young voters has hit a new and predictable low. According to a recent YouGov Economist poll conducted between October 24th and 27th, Trump now has a net approval rating of around negative 50 points. That is among voters under the age of 30. Ooh. Let me show you here. That is a disaster. Wow. According to AP VoteCast, voters aged between 18 to 29 supported Kamala Harris over Trump 51 to 47% in 2024. Still a very slight majority here. That margin is significantly narrower than back in 2020 when former President Joe Biden carried young people by 61% compared to Trump's 36%. Now, again, big difference, right? Big change, huge swing over to Donald Trump. Okay? Now, you're not going to be shocked as to who among Gen Z was the most supportive. White men, of course. Now, that said, Trump's net approval rating among white people is around 0. Among men, it was just below 0. But among women, it is around negative 25. Wow. Now, of course, among Black Americans, this is around negative 75%. Hey, it's almost like Black people know what's up and vote accordingly. Especially Black women who keep getting it right over and over again. Perhaps we should start listening to them. Or maybe, I don't know, even letting them take a turn at the wheel. Because let's be honest here, us white folks, we've made some mistakes, okay? And look, obviously, I do not mean all white people, so don't get your underwears in a knot or anything like that. A lot of us, good progressives, we are white, we're male, we're a little bit older, and so, you know, hey, it's all right. And a lot of us actually do remember a time when the economy wasn't a complete disaster run by incompetent morons or greedy grifters. Although I don't really, because I'm a millennial. So, but some of the older folks might actually remember a better time. Okay. Now, that said, this slide in support for Trump is obviously due to the current dire economic conditions that we're facing right now as a result of being under Republican rule. Now, the same voters that swung so hard for Trump said that they did so because the economy. We were concerned about the economy. We just want eggs to be more cheaper now. Okay, but Trump took egg. That's what happened. Trump took egg, and now there you go. We're screwed. But before, I should say, right after the 2024 election, former Biden campaign advisor John Della Volpe spoke to NPR and said, "Look, young voters, they believed somehow that Trump was the best candidate for the economy." So one of their big issues was, of course, the price of things, record inflation, for example. In fact, he told NPR in November of 2024, quote, "From the earliest focus groups I conducted this year, there was this innate sense that younger people's personal finances were better and would be better under a Trump administration. And nothing that the Democrats seemed to do over the course of the last year really changed that perspective." And look, it's not because Democrats have worse economic plans. No, it's, I believe, their messaging. I don't think they talked as much about the economy as Trump did. Okay. Look, Democrats, Kamala Harris, she talked a lot about democracy, freedom, and how Trump is an authoritarian who threatens those things, all of which are true, by the way, all of which are true. That said, the argument here didn't resonate. Why? Because all throughout history, populations have voted fascism into power because they wanted cheaper groceries. And instead of getting cheaper groceries, because they never do, you usually end up getting death camps. Okay? Now, I would ask why Democrats didn't push a progressive economic message that would have been able to counter Trump and his lies. Again, I'm not saying that Harris's campaign didn't talk about economic issues, what they were going to do, right? They had some decent plans, all right? It's the stuff that I was like, okay, I could see that. That would be probably good for people, right? But the thing is, they didn't really push that aggressively, and that is because of the donors. Look, rich people and corporations, they always ally with the fascists, right? Because they believe that they'll make more money under fascism, as long as they don't piss off the regime. The result is, of course, corporations and wealthy folks, they're doing better than ever. The top 0.1% has actually doubled their wealth in the last 5 years. Okay? While 20 million Americans are about to lose their health insurance because they can't afford it anymore, because the ACA subsidies are running out, they haven't been extended, while 42 million of the poorest Americans will not have food in November. Their food benefits are gone. They've been stopped. All right? Now, the donors, they give to both parties. And they end up usually winning with no matter who's in power. Okay? But the people who lose in that situation, which is us, we lose way more when Republicans are in power. Okay? While corporations win. And again, corporations win regardless of who's in power, Democrats or Republicans, but they tend to win more with Republicans because of deregulation and tax cuts, right? And so, you know, when Democrats are in power, we don't lose as much. And sometimes we gain things, right? And this is what I've seen throughout my entire life. I've seen this pattern, and I'm sure you have as well, okay? And now, unfortunately, the only generation, Gen Z, they have not seen this play out yet. And now they're starting to. We've learned that lesson as millennials, okay? Watching George W. Bush do what he did, and Trump, obviously, do what he did. But Gen Z, they didn't see that. And so now it's their turn to learn that very, very painful lesson that Trump is teaching them. Okay. No Republican has been good for the economy since Reagan, and not even Reagan was good. Reagan was patient zero for everything that's going wrong in this country today. Remember, he was the one that actually allowed for the massive flood, his court, to flood our political system with corporate cash. Okay, Bilotti v. First Bank. Okay, I mean, that's one of the decisions here. Corporations are people, and they can now put unlimited amounts of money in our system, and of course, crush the unions. The air traffic controllers. Okay, another good point. Okay, so yes, he started the decline of labor unions in this country and labor power, which before then had actually built and sustained the middle class, created this strong middle class. He did the welfare queen stuff. So again, Reagan, patient zero, okay, to where this all started, and Trump being the natural evolution of that, of the disaster started by Reagan and the rich. And I also believe that there was the right-wing moral majority that also, the Christian nationalists, essentially. And that's where that came from as well. Okay. So now, one more story here. Let's do it. Oh boy. Let's not forget that Ronald Reagan more than tripled the national debt. Yeah. Oh, yes. Those massive tax cuts, which again is what George W. Bush did. Obama allowed to continue that. And then Trump cut taxes even more during Trump 1. And then Trump 2 cut taxes on the rich even more. So, yeah, we're just doubling down and tripling down on the most terrible policies, economic policies. And, a lot of us are wondering, how could this have happened? Where most of us here, okay, who pay attention, who know these things, we're telling you it's Republican economic policy, neoliberal, specifically economic policy, deregulation and tax cuts that are causing this. And we should not do those things. Yet every time in our political system that is flooded with corporate cash, we keep doing it. Okay. Now, I got to move on. We're going to keep doing that. Okay. The Trump voting state of Iowa is not doing so well under the president's own policies. Gee, who could have seen that one coming? Except everyone. Now, how bad is it getting? Well, in the first quarter of 2025, the rural state's GDP dropped by 6.1%. Not good. That's actually the second worst in the country, behind only Nebraska. Ooh, Nebraska. Also not doing so well. Now, one Iowa farming family spoke to the New York Times and said, quote, "Right now, we're fighting different economic wars all at once." And said you can sustain it one at a time, but right now it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. Many of them, of course, being self-inflicted. Just saying. Again, they voted for Donald Trump, who said mass deportations, who did trade wars, and that's, of course, what we got now. More of that. Wow. Without, of course, realizing that, turns out that stuff's going to affect us. Yeah, it is. The trade war, for example, had led to China not buying U.S.-grown soybeans, okay, which was a major export for farmers in Iowa. In 2024 alone, Iowa exported $12.6 billion worth of soybeans to China. Okay, that helps the farmers. Now, it's funny because Trump's talking about, oh, now we're going to have a deal, right? We're going to have a deal with China. We got a deal. We got a deal. Okay, even if that's true, okay, which farmers have seen the deal, and so far they're not really impressed with it, all right? Even though we have that, that doesn't mean the exports are going to come back. That $12.6 billion, it ain't coming back. Not immediately, and might not ever really come back. China, they've already arranged for new buyers. For example, Argentina, right? Argentina also getting a bailout that could be around $40 billion. In fact, one Iowa farmer asked of the bailout, hey, who are you subsidizing? Our competitors or us? Well, I think we already know the answer to that one. Okay, dude's helping out his buddy Javier Milei and his libertarian economic experiment. Now, wait a minute. Libertarian, isn't that supposed to not have government subsidies? I mean, look, our tax money is being diverted into subsidizing Argentina's so-called free market. Not so much of a free market if it needs government handouts. Speaking of handouts, farmers, they're going to need one real soon. In fact, Iowa Soybean Association Chief Kirk Leeds said of the trade situation, quote, I'm not exactly sure how we repair some of these relationships. This is as challenging as I've seen it. We've got uncertainties beyond compare. Yes. Now, add, of course, to the fact that these farmers no longer have a market to sell their soybeans. The costs to grow those soybeans have actually gone up. Fertilizer is up 14%. Tariffs, of course, have pushed equipment costs up across the board. Look, John Deere alone, major manufacturer of farm equipment, has taken a $300 million hit as a result of the tariffs on steel and aluminum. They've had hundreds of layoffs, and they're not the only one. Layoffs are hitting everywhere. And then, of course, there's the anti-immigration stuff, which is affecting meatpacking plants that are essential to Iowa's pork industry. They rely on immigrant labor. However, hundreds of legal workers, okay, these are not undocumented, all right? These are legal workers from Haiti, Cuba, El Salvador, and Honduras have lost their legal status thanks to Trump. So he took away their legal status, making them undocumented. And then, well, they got to leave. They're gone. You know what that means? No workers. No workers. In fact, one Iowa economist said this, quote, it's difficult to find domestic workers who can take these jobs. It's not costless to replace that number of workers. Well, now, wait a minute. Where are the Americans who are supposed to take over those jobs? Oh, right. There's not enough of us. There really isn't. Look, a lot of the people who could do these jobs are not sitting there living in the middle of Iowa. They're in the cities. They're in the colleges. They're learning tech and they're learning finance. They're not going to go back to Iowa to work at a meatpacking plant for substandard wages. Are you kidding me? That's not going to happen. That's not reality. Well, what about the work requirements for people on Medicaid and SNAP? We can get those lazy people in the factories. Except that's not going to happen either. Because most of the people that are on that program already work. All right? Either that or their children or the disabled. What, are you going to make the children go into the factories? Well, they actually kind of already have. There were undocumented children that were also caught in some of these meatpacking plants. So there you go. Now look, Trump's immigration policies and pushing out all the immigrants, it's creating a massive labor shortage. That there's just not enough people to fill. And if that's not enough, there's another problem for people in Iowa. And that's renewable energy. Something that obviously Donald Trump and the Republicans both despise and are attacking. All right. Now, Iowa, just happens to be a leader in wind energy production. That's right. Conservative Trump voting Iowa actually loves their windmills. They love the windmills. They had a booming alternative energy sector in wind. Now, of course, we all know Trump hates windmills. Okay, he seems to have a really weird personal beef with windmills. I mean, he hates them. He hates them. Speaking of beef, by the way, I did mention that ranchers are also being completely fucked by this administration. Since now, this administration is going to be buying Argentine beef, which may or may not be filled with poisons or parasites, or just maybe poop and sawdust. Because Malay's government does not believe in regulating business. They are, as I mentioned, libertarian. What happens when libertarians take over? They deregulate the hell out of everything. And so therefore, you're very likely to find poop or sawdust in your Argentine beef. Good job. Look, Iowa voted for Trump because he made a whole bunch of promises that he had never intended to keep. We know that. He does not care about the people there. He just needed their vote, and he got it. And in return, they received a GDP drop of 6.1%. Their $12.6 billion soybean export market vanished. Their costs went up. Their jobs disappeared. Immigrant labor was forced out, while their global competitors got a subsidy with our cash. I don't know about you, but to me, that sure doesn't scream America first. Argentine beef also has foot and mouth disease. Good luck avoiding that. Yeah, no kidding. So there you go. The lovely free market at work. All right. That's all I've got for you today. It feels like enough, doesn't it? Okay. Let's see. Christopher Brackley with the very kind $5 super chat says, in Pennsylvania, Medicaid and Medicare subcontract to insurance companies anyway. Save some money. Yeah, look, it happens to a lot of places. There's these, public-private partnerships. I mean, you even have to watch out for Medicare because there's Medicare Advantage, which is actually private plans. And that, by the way, is what United Health and other insurance companies upcode and upcharge so that they can get more money from the taxpayer to, subsidize their yachts. There you go. The solution, of course, is to just get all the private elements out of our healthcare system and do single payer. That's it. Get all the private elements out. Okay? Gone. Just purged. All right? And just do single payer healthcare. Guaranteed costs will go down. Costs will go down. The level of care will go up. The quality of care will go up. And, if you don't believe that, then I'm sorry, but you have fallen for health insurance CEO propaganda. And so, because they have dedicated a lot of their money to funding think tanks to figure out how we can trick Americans into not supporting the very obviously superior, for them, healthcare system. Yes, Ivisan says privatization leads to higher costs and less care. Exactly. And that's unfortunately what we're dealing with right now. Okay. And healthcare CEOs wonder why people don't care about what happens to them. Indeed. Indeed. Absolutely. Medicare for all is the only way to actually have a good, fair, equitable, and cheaper healthcare system. Okay. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining here. Please, if you haven't already, like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Check out the videos if you were at all late, because trust me, all the stories today were fire, including me yelling at some random person. So, yeah, it's some days I get a little heated, and like to yell at people in my chat. But most of the time, y'all are pretty awesome. So, and I love you. Oh, and hell, even if I disagree with you sometimes, you know, I still love y'all. And appreciate you watching. All right. Look, consider becoming a supporter of the show. Hit the join button below if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Facebook, become a subscriber, or also if you're on Twitch, you can become a subscriber. All of that stuff helps out the show. And if you want to avoid, you know, giving money to Google, Alphabet, Amazon, or whatever through those various or Meta, then the best way to support the show is to go to our Patreon, patreon.com/JeffWaldorf, and support me directly for the cost of like a cup of coffee. Which, by the way, actually less than a cup of coffee now, because coffee is much more expensive than it used to be. And so, you know, you can support the show $5 a month, you know, nothing you do that. And, you know, I won't have to worry about, you know, the show not existing, because that is one of the problems with independent progressive media these days, is that there is just about no money in it. And, you know, even for a channel as large as mine, and I'm shocked to find out that I'm actually in the top 1% of YouTubers, which is crazy to me. But, you know, even if you're in that bracket, you've been making a lot, okay? At least not this year, which has just been absolutely brutal, okay? So, again, I do need your support. I do need your help to continue doing the show, and, you know, to fund everything. So sign up, become a member, support the show, and ensure that the independent progressive media continues to stick around, because I have a feeling we're going to need people like myself going forward, okay? If not only to make it out of this hell world that we're in, but also to maybe try to build something better. Okay. With that said, thank you all. I love you. Be careful and have a good Halloween if you can. Certainly, there's enough. I didn't have to dress up today because I already felt that there was enough ghouls and goblins, just, you know, in the government. So I didn't do that today. Plus, you know, who can afford a costume nowadays, much less candy? Not me. Not this guy. Not gonna happen. Not today. Not this year. Okay, maybe next year. Maybe things get better. But anyway, if you are going out there, be careful. Watch for ice. Okay, and I don't mean the kind that you can slip on, but the kind that will beat you in the face if you are brown. So be careful. Watch out for them, and have try to have a good weekend if you can, if possible. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you. Good night.